A sick and dying man contemplates the purpose and meaning of his life and the way he lived it. This novella is a story meant less to tell a story and more to remind us to remember death and consider the lives of our own, the way that we have led our lives, and does so rather effectively. I give The Death of Ivan Ilyich a 4 out of 5. Shockingly enough, this story starts at the end, at Ilyich's funeral, others reflecting on his death. But then, starting at chapters 2 through about 5 or so, we get an early history of this Ivan Ilyich's life and his early marriage. Then we move into a history of a deteriorating marriage and successful career. Then the marriage gets better, Ivan sets a new home, and injures himself. Gradually, this injury causes him to grow more temperamental and moody with his family and those around him. This illness slowly overcomes him, and he finally ponders on his life and the way he has lived in the midst of a belief that he will die imminently. Although he's only able to ponder about his life for as long as he's able to think about it. Once the pain overcomes his ability to even think beyond the pain itself, he wonders at the point of life at all, not necessarily pondering about it, but questioning it. He dies with a relatively unresolved state of thought, in immense pain to an unknown affliction that even those around him are unable to solve. The story is not clear about the outright cause of Ilyich's pain. This is primarily the only gripe that I had with the story. I wanted to know more about this, but that isn't what the story is meant to be. It's one of the only things that I wanted to see a bit different, sure, though handling the doctors is part of Ivan's affair. The purpose of the story is, of course, to actively think about life, how you're living, what life means, and how to be a better person. There's the meaning of life found throughout the story. There's what gives a person individual purpose. There's a warning against wasting frivolous time, or rather wasting time frivolously. There's the uncertainty of time and of health, and the way that time and health affect the decisions that we make and what we choose to do, and when we choose to do certain things. There's relationships and building healthy, meaningful ones, but also the way that those can deteriorate without being kept up or made a primary focus or an important part of life, or the way that mentality about life can affect those relationships. There's what one's spiritual state of existence is like, and various other similar topics and questions thrown throughout the novella. I came out of this story with a minor form of existential crisis, I must admit. Although I am young and have theoretically a lot of life ahead of me, it did make me question some of these topics and these themes, as I've listed just before, in such a way that I was freaking out about certain things at one or two points in time. Living in pursuit of something isn't always what it's cracked up to be. Forgetting to live for others as much as oneself can be detrimental. These are the primary lessons of Ivan Ilyich. Unfortunately, it's hard to analyze exactly what the story is saying on any of these fronts. It implies heavily on account of thematic depth that is worth looking into, but some things can be skewed by Tolstoy's own manipulation, subconscious or no, as the hand of the author. Personal biases are also going to heavily adapt and affect the way that you personally see some things too. My personal religious foundations affects how I read this. Somebody with opposite or just otherwise very different beliefs could see things likewise oppositely or very differently. It's hard to really analyze or dig deep into the story without simply telling you that it is about wondering about life, something that we all do fundamentally. It is part of human nature to wonder what the purpose of life is. So I recommend trying your best to read this story with an open mind and to do so on your own. Come at it from the blankest slate you can possibly manage. It could guide through a lot of varying questions and raise some others that you might consider important, and amongst those things to make you think about, thinking about mortality is never fun, but I think a lot of maturity also comes from it and is a lot of what makes the story so worth reading. I find myself personally a lot calmer and more collected when I'm secure with my knowledge or place in the world. and sometimes it takes a long time to get comfortable there. Because of the way that different people are going to see the story differently and interpret different aspects of it differently, I can't really analyze too much about what I think without some of my own personal biases, as I mentioned before, affecting my outlook and maybe completely turning some people off of the very topics at hand within the novella. It is one that is definitely worth reading, but one that is worth reading on your own, with your own ideals and your own place in life, your own understanding of life, and let that guide you through the story. Let the story guide you through that, however works best for you. All of this being said, next fortnight on the 20th, I'll be covering To Build a Fire by Jack London, a story that I really enjoyed, and I believe my first 5 out of 5 for Short Story Sundays so far. I hope to see you there.